Let's talk about the Uyghurs. They're an ethnic minority in China who say they're victims of horrific crimes.
The Uyghurs are facing genocide because of our religion and our ethnicity.
The UN thinks 1 million Uyghurs are being detained in camps, maybe more. A day before he left office, the American Secretary of State called it a genocide.
This is forced labor, this is forced sterilization, things that we haven't seen in an awfully long time in this world.
China says it is putting Uyghurs in camps, but that they're job training centers, and that the accusations of abuse are a lie.
所谓中国在新疆实施种族灭绝和犯反人类罪，彻头彻尾、蓄意炮制的、耸人听闻的伪命题和恶意的荒唐闹剧。
So who are the Uyghurs? Why is the Chinese government putting so many people in camps? And should the world be doing more about it? And here's Xinjiang on a map. It's huge, 3 times the size of France. It's got oil, gas, and a lot of the world's cotton comes from here. Plus, a part of China's Belt and Road Initiative is being built through it. It's a multi-billion-dollar network of highways and railways to connect China to Europe and beyond.
I think the Chinese government has used the Belt and Road Initiative to justify a need for heightened security.
And there has been trouble there.
Ethnic tensions between the native Uyghur community and the majority Han Chinese have existed for years.
Uyghurs have often protested about being oppressed. Many have called for their own state, and some have organized attacks. While China hosted the Olympics, a series of bus bombings were claimed by a group called Turkestan Islamic Party. In 2009, there were riots and fighting between the Uyghurs and Han Chinese, and 200 people died, most of them ethnic Han. And in 2014, a bombing at a market and a knife attack at a railway station killed 30 people and injured more than 200. That's when China really came down hard on Xinjiang.
The Chinese government is confident and capable of cracking down on violent terrorists.
We should be clear, there have been violent attacks occasionally by small groups of people in that region, but there's little to no credible evidence that could in any way justify the kinds of policies that we see.
So what are we seeing? Well, the accusation is that China is trying to exterminate Uyghur culture and their identity. And activists and Uyghurs who've left Xinjiang say China's doing it in all kinds of ways. Forced labor, children being indoctrinated, women being sterilized or forced to have abortions. It's a long list of allegations. And then there's all those camps. We know there are hundreds of them in Xinjiang. Activists say Uyghurs from all walks of life, professors, doctors, public leaders, ordinary people too, are all detained without a warrant, charge, or trial. Even loyal supporters of the Communist Party haven't been spared. Getting a look inside one of these places hasn't been easy. Although Chinese state media have released their version of what goes on there.
Uyghurs are shown eagerly learning Chinese, getting job training, and dancing and singing songs praising the Communist Party.
All this, as some argue, is making people freer from poverty, from illiteracy, and from extremism.
But these camps don't sound like places you'd want to end up in.
And o dərsdə deyilişcə, bu sizlər dindən zəhərlənənlər, bu biz İslam dini deyən bir yuqumluq kesel.
An Australian think tank found that Uyghurs are being forced to work in factories in Xinjiang and beyond that are in the supply chains of well-known global brands. Though brands like Apple and Nike have denied using forced labor. Many Uyghurs also say they've been tortured. Some testified before a US congressional committee.
Because my English is not good enough, I would like my translator to read my statement. Each time I was electrocuted, my whole body would shake violently. I thought I would rather die than go through this torture.
The detainees in those camps are subject to food and the sleep deprivations, and the physical and the mental torture, rape.
The list of abuses seems endless. Even the Uyghurs who've managed to stay out of these detention centers aren't free. Not really.
The capacity of state surveillance enabled by high technology across the Uyghur region is extraordinary.
There are thousands of checkpoints, security cameras everywhere. Many use facial recognition. Rights groups say security forces also put QR codes outside Uyghur homes.
You know, where they work, what schools the children go to, whether they have a criminal record. You know, it's a pretty chilling tool.
There's even an app. Human Rights Watch says police use it to monitor people.
As we dig deeper into the app, we can see that ordinary, routine, legal behavior is being treated by authorities as suspect.
China, though, says it's not doing anything wrong. There are no human rights violations, and this is all about developing Xinjiang's economy, maintaining peace and stability.
涉疆问题不是宗教、民族、人权问题，而是反暴恐和反分裂问题。
China says most Uyghurs have been released from re-education camps and found jobs. This report, though, found that detention camps are being expanded. It puts the number at more than 380. That's about 40% higher than previous estimates. There was even a time when Chinese officials denied the camps existed at all.
After overwhelming evidence was presented to them, then they said, oops, yeah, we do have some camps. Those are re-education camps. We are trying to train those Uyghurs with job skills. It's a complete lie.
A huge cache of data hacked from Chinese police computer servers has revealed new evidence on how China has treated imprisoned Uyghur Muslims in the country's Xinjiang region. John Sudworth from our partners at the BBC reports.
These are the faces China never intended us to see from inside its system of mass incarceration in Xinjiang. The government has long denied it's running detention camps for Uyghurs, insisting instead they are vocational schools for willing students. The photos, almost 3,000 of them, show the reality of how whole swathes of Uyghur society have been swept up person by person. The oldest was 73 at the time of her detention, the youngest just 15.
I was exhausted. They took me into a secure room with heavy metal doors, which made a lot of noise when they were opened. The room was around 20 meters squared, and there was no window. There were about 40 women inside. Half of them were standing up. The others were lying on the ground against each other. All of them wore heavy chains on their feet.
In the cells, Gulbahar says conditions were difficult, with a lack of basic hygiene, water and food. She also says she was subjected to brainwashing. They wanted her to give full allegiance to the Communist Party.
Once a week, they showed us a video of Xi Jinping. Then they told us to write assessments on ourselves. They wanted to make sure our ways of thinking changed and improved. Every Monday at 9:55, we had to stand up and sing the Chinese national anthem. For the rest of the week, we had to sing 5 songs every day. Oh, I've forgotten the rest.
At the Idkar Mosque, one of Xinjiang's holiest sites, it is a symbol of earthly authority that flies from the roof. But the access we're being given is designed to show that any concern about China's tightening control of religious faith is misplaced. With the government-approved imam denying, for example, that long beards are now banned in Xinjiang. When we break away from our official tour, however, along with the locked and deserted homes, we find clear evidence of the suppression of Islamic customs and beliefs. So here it is in black and white, a notice telling people living in this village that certain religious practices are banned. At this point here at number 10 says that the wearing of long beards for young men is not to be allowed. Close by, we find one of Xinjiang's many re-education camps into which hundreds of thousands of Uyghurs, Kazakhs and other Muslim minorities have disappeared. And there's this. Right across the region, mosques are being destroyed. Over the past 2 years in cities, towns and villages, dozens of religious sites once clearly visible on satellite images have been turned into patches of bare earth. So I asked if we can get to the mosque. He says that the road is closed. We think it's only just been closed moments before our arrival. We've seen a number of other people on motorbikes, scooters, some cars as well, stopping and asking why they can't get through. We're hoping to find out what's happened to this, the gatehouse of the city's Aitika Mosque. Its distinctive shadow shows it was still standing in late 2017, but now it's gone, overwhelmed by the surrounding commercial development. We managed to get close enough to film some of the building work. Marooned in the middle, the mosque's prayer hall with its domed towers is still intact. But there's construction machinery on the spot where the gatehouse once stood. Nearby, traditional Uyghur neighbourhoods are being demolished too. The old homes are visible in this image from 2 years ago. Whole swathes have disappeared just a few months later.
These people are systematically oppressed by their own government.
We've been waking up to horrific stories every day, heartbreaking images separating mothers from their children.
They live in a police state where they're monitored by one of the most advanced and intrusive surveillance systems in the world.
Imagine that the police force you to stand in front of a camera for biometric data collection.
Every online activity is tracked.
Imagine that the police force you to install spying app on your phone.
Their religion is restricted. Many traditional Muslim names are even banned for newborns.
Party officials are frequently attacking Islam as very old-fashioned, very backward.
These are some of the suspected detention camps where an estimated 1 million Uyghurs are held. Many of them have not been heard from since being detained.